And we should be good to go. Greetings. Greetings, fellow hobby enjoyers, fans of the channel. A little later than usual. I felt I ought to watch that secret level animation. And I gotta say, it's pretty cool. Francois, welcome. Misfit, Pyro, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Francois says, time for a short nap. Gonna leave the stream on for the algorithm and such. Well, that is quite considerate and very much appreciated. Right, so the plan. The big old plan for today. We have the commandos nearly done. Nearly. I want to just use a bit of sponge and apply a bit of brown, a bit of maybe Rhinox hide or dry earth bark to their base, just a bit of grime. And beyond that, we're just rimming bases. But, keyword here, but, for our Quiet with Big Shooter, I want to try and apply some brown contrast to her legs to emulate Quiet's, her stockings. It's, you know, I like how the legs are looking, I like how the butt's looking. I think it's a good paint job overall, but I'm a little nervous about ruining that paint job with a layer of contrast over top. So, look, worst case scenario, I'll have to repaint the skin. You know, hopefully just a layer of contrast can do the trick. I'm thinking dilute it a little bit with some contrast medium, but I guess we'll have to see. Pyro says, "Welp, missed that last stream. How was the Knights detachment?" The Knights detachments and the Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights have a similar shtick when it comes to their theme. They're both allied detachments focused in on souping in Chaos cultists. Well, I guess damned units. So you have all your Beastmen and Renegade Guard goobers as well. And on the Imperium side, it's souping in some AdMech allies. And they're kind of same, but different, but still same in that regard. The Chaos Knights one is a bit more satisfying to me. The core theme being these hordes of cultists are kind of venerating these dark mechanical gods on the battlefield. Okay, so we will begin with the splatter, I think, on the base. Not splatter, sponging. We're going to do some subtle sponge work. Well, I hope it's subtle. Just to add a little bit of noise, a little bit of variance to the bases. I'm thinking of using this sponge. I also have some foam from a army transport cutout. Some pluck foam leftovers. You gotta save your pluck foam for moments like these. Pyro says AdMech. AdMech A? Nice. Just what I wanted as an AdMech player. Yeah, I don't know if it's better or worse to soup in the Knights into AdMech detachments or to add in some AdMech to the Knights detachments, but an important point of note for the what you can ally in on the AdMech side, it's mostly, I think, Tech Priests and Skitarii infantry. So you don't get your crazy tools or servitors or battle bots. Okay, so whose base is most exposed? Let's try it on our Slasher Boy. He'll be our test subject. He will be the test subject. You know, if everything goes according to plan, today will be the end of the Commando's arc. You know, permitting there's no disaster with the painting of Quiet's stockings. You know, when I look at the source reference for her character design, there are quite a lot of cutouts in the stocking, and I don't know how easy that'll be if I'm trying to contrast it out. If I can, it might be a case where you have to work faster than I would like to. All right, so here's some Rhinox hide. Just gonna try and get most of it off the sponge here and see what we're kind of working with. Like, is that a good pattern? Yeah, I guess so. Let's see. Definitely think a less is more. The less is more rule applies to this sort of work. You could have one heavy area. Let's see how the texture of this sponge looks. Honestly, it feels like it's more or less the same. You know, in my old hobby station, I used to have a weird, I think it's a dishwashing sponge, but meant for getting out like difficult to remove stains while washing dishes. And I found that made some pretty intricate patterns, but unfortunately, that sponge is no more. Okay, so we'll just continue banging these out. Continue banging out these a little bit of Rhinox hide dirt and noise patterns, I suppose. Suppose we can term them that way. Misfit says, I spent 80 pounds on gaming stuff today. Ooh, some holiday acquisitions, Misfit. A little Christmas holiday gift for yourself, maybe. It's easy to justify at this time of the year. Misfit says, birthday money from my auntie. Got a brush set to try and 2 Call of Cthulhu RPG book. Very interesting. New brushes are always a value-added tool. See, because of my psychosis, I have a new set of brushes to use, but I feel like until I start a new project, I don't want to break the seal of those new brushes. Uh-oh, that's a bit stark. Okay, like just erase it with your finger, no big deal. Okay, what happens if we dampen the sponge? Might actually ruin the effect. I'm trying out a little bit of our brown contrast here. Maybe with the dry side, we can smear some of that around. This is what you would call mixed media. God. Butterfingers over here. Misfit says, one book is called Cthulhu by Gaslight Investigator's Guide. The first of two books that are an update of the one from last edition. I've been eagerly waiting for the new edition, 1890s Victorian era UK. That's a digital version. Interesting. So Call of Cthulhu, is that a RPG, like a Pathfinder or D&D type game situation, or? I know of it, I just don't know much about it. Call of Cthulhu, that is. Horror/investigation tabletop RPG. As I suspected. Oh, it sounds cool. Haven't done much tabletop RPGs myself, but I feel like it's a very rewarding experience if you got a good group. I feel like you could really make some memories without... I mean, not trying to sound cheesy, it just sounds like you'd have a... There's good potential there, is all I mean. It seems like this wedge shape is actually yielding a lot better. Maybe I should have tried this out ahead of time. Look, we're doing it live. There's bound to be a fair bit of discovery. Misfit says, so pen and paper, character sheets, etc. Yeah, yep. That's kind of what I was imagining how it would work. That traditional tabletop RPG, very cool stuff. I do like the sound of it. The other is Hudson and Brand, Inquiry Agents of the Obscure. Same setting, era, as the other book, centered around running a detective agency. Getting this one print on demand from Drive-Thru RPG. I'm interested to see how the print on demand works out. A rare book then, by the sounds of it. Kind of like a made-to-order situation. Oh, almost forgot my bomb squig. So a little later, we'll take a look at the Grey Knights detachment that was posted today on the Warhammer community site. I wonder if this detachment's direction is more in line with the Space Paladin archetype that I would argue the Grey Knights exemplify, and what their detachment and army rules ought to kind of flex. Okay, that's about as hard as I want to go on the splatter. We can give some of these first initial boys the heavier spots sporadically, but Bomb Squig is mostly good. Our basic boy, just a few dabs. A few smears. think that's adequate, honestly. That is adequate. I only slightly messed up my fingers. Let's see. Misfit says, not so much rare as small volume by a company called Stygian Fox. Probably less overhead for them to use the print-on-demand service. Handy but expensive. Working out £47 without postage for that. Ah, a premium tome. A truly premium tome. Okay. Given that the only thing really I want to paint is Quiet Stockings, we'll probably begin that process, evaluate how it looks, assess the damage, and then maybe escape from reality and look at the detachment. So I'm thinking you want some contrast medium or maybe Lamian medium afterwards. I don't know. I feel for... I'm not sure what kind of finish you want to have for stockings. If I look at the reference figure, which I can post on stream real quick. How can I can use this. Perfect. Oh wait, that is here? Yeah. So looking at this figure, there's a sheen. There is a sheen on the stocking, so maybe you don't want a dead matte kind of finish. Yes, it is a great experiment. We'll see how it pans out. Yeah, I'm thinking you want a fairly thinned down brown contrast. I'm going to use Cygor brown. I think it's an approximately close color. Well, we'll see. Like I said, worst case scenario, we'll have to do a whole entire paint over of the legs. Maybe not paint over, but you know, if we're darkening down the skin, maybe just repaint the skin as if we're intending to replicate a stocking over top. I feel like I want even more medium. Pyro says, so satin varnish? Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm leaning. I don't have a proper satin varnish, but the GW paints tend to lean that way. Contrast can get kind of glossy though, but maybe a matte medium or a Lamian medium over top would correct that. Like, look at this. This is so brown. I don't like this feeling. What are we thinking? Is that a good translucency? Might be. Might be. Oh, I'm so nervous. Okay, so I'm more concerned with... Yeah, we can paint cutouts in after the fact. Let's just go for an all-over coverage. Oh God. Is it working? Or am I ruining it? Look, sometimes you gotta risk breaking a few eggs. This is one of those times, so we just gotta suck it up. You know, I was debating on not trying for this step because I was having so much trepidation around it, but I don't know if it'll read as strong as a reference to quiet without it. Felt like my hand was kind of forced to at least attempt it. Yeah, unfortunately, there's some pretty bad brush strokes in here, so... Yeah, we're gonna have to paint over top of this already, I can tell. Pyro says, hold on, I'm trying to remember the Senator Armstrong quote on breaking eggs. Classic Metal Gear character. So over the top. But that entire game is, well, yeah, that whole game is over the top. You know, cue the Anakin meme. The Anakin meme of, what have I done? I just ruined a beautiful butt is what I've done. I'm very sad. I'm very sad right now. Okay, well, look, it's dark. Is it? I don't think it's better. We got some terrible pooling. We had some nice shading before. I think the lesson learned from this experiment is that one does not simply paint stockings over skin. I think you paint your leg to look like it's covered in stockings from the get-go. That's what I think. That is what I've learned. So we're going to bust out our skin recipe. I don't think we'll need to go to Incubi. Maybe we might, but my gut intuition is telling me we probably want to lean closer to brown for our darker tones if we're trying to create that stocking look. So we're going to have a medium skin tone with Horus, Sons of Horus. And Ogren Camo will still be our right color. If I can find it, yes I can. So, yeah, Armstrong's quote on breaking eggs. I feel like we've successfully broken those eggs. Oh, you know what we have to do, though? Very important, very important. We need to get rid of the pooling contrast in between her legs because it'll look terrible if there's a... Yeah, it would actually ruin the model's aesthetic, I think, quite a bit if there's such an artifact, so to speak. Okay, so we'll get some contrast mixed in with the Sons of Horus blend, and we'll try and rescue these legs. How are we for time? 30 minutes in, not bad. So we'll pluck away at this for about 30 minutes or so, then take a break and give that detachment a look-see. All right. Actually, I'll get some glaze medium. I think that might be the right sort of application given what we're trying to preserve. We want to preserve that brown kind of undertone, I think. Or at least that sort of tint. So this is just a layer of Sons of Horus. It is fairly thin. At least I thought it would be. Now I think the effect of these stockings is going to require a broader contrast to sell the effect, right? Darker darks and probably, for sure, darker darks, right? Because these types of stockings tend to accentuate the form, and I think that means more contrast. It's a little tricky also because you kind of want those ripped areas too, right? Look, we've come full circle. I thought we're almost done. So I think I want to keep that contrast along the edge of the musculature here and probably towards the knee. Well, since we got the glaze medium in place, I guess we'll just commit to wet blending. Since we have more working time, right? I think it's probably what I've signed up for. So might as well commit to the path. So I guess I'm committing to very much a working, building this up, evaluating as we go, sort of painting to taste sort of method. Pyro says, so at what the 40k are you starting Horus Heresy based on that Imperial Fist Instagram post? And a fair question, Pyro, a fair question. No, I am not starting Imperial Fists. That is actually going to be a Crimson Fist, veteran battle brother, probably for a kill team. Alright, I wanted to do something with those Age of Darkness Marines, and it turned into a little bit of a kit bash project, I guess you could say, using up old bits, old armor marks, scrapping together what you can from the battlefield, from fallen battle brothers or old armories. I kind of like that imagery for the Crimson Fist quite a bit. More so than just the clean Primaris look. Not that there's anything wrong with it, right? I'm just purely a preference. And I happen to have the models and parts for it. I also just adore the scale and look of those Horus Heresy models. It just feels inherently nostalgic to take those bodies and put an old Mark 7 head on them. I'm like, oh, look at that. That's Warhammer. That's how I feel. If I were to put it into words when I look at that model. I'm like, oh, look at him. Look at him with his Godwin pattern bolt gun. I believe that's the right term. I believe that's the case. You know what? Now that we're here, I'm going to start painting in our tears. So I'm going to tear like that. Maybe she has one under her knee too, but that's a bit tricky. Another tear over there. I don't want to overdo it, right? Another tear there. Maybe rotate this figure. Back of the leg has a tear around this area. So we're just marking in the tears here. Nothing crazy. Oh, and at the end, I'll have to put a black line running down the seam of, I guess, the stocking stitches, or however it's, yeah, probably that's what it is. Just a fabric seam. This leg is covered in a sneaking suit stocking, but, keyword, but, there is a tear on the underbutt, you could say. Pyro says, darn, would have wanted to see a vid of your journey of making a Horus Heresy force. I can appreciate that, Pyro. I can appreciate that. It's not something I'm willing to commit to. My gaming group doesn't play Horus Heresy, and it would just be so much of it'd be purely a hobby painting project, and I would rather If I was just purely doing a painting passion project without any gaming use, I think I would probably just maximize the model variety and do something like Infinity or even something from Age of Sigmar. Unfortunate. Sorry to disappoint you there, Pyro. Okay, now we will continue. We will continue developing this stocking color. I wonder if the lighting for you guys would be better if I adjusted it like this. Maybe. Yeah, you can see more now, right? Dudes, look at me. I'm innovating. I'm a rather innovative individual. I think that's better for you guys. And I guess better for me as well. Tremari says, got work in a couple hours, so I'm stopping to say hi. Oh, much appreciated, Tremari. Howdy to you as well. As you can see, I've completely ruined the leg. Gotta exaggerate so the air doesn't feel that bad. Look, I knew this was a risk. There's always a chance. I think by blocking in these tears first, we kind of know what our threshold is for painting the stocking. I think that's a smart idea. And so we want more contrast, so I'm going to just apply that, basically that contrast mix right into the seam here created by her thigh. Same on this side. I think we want I wonder how much of a cheat it would be, but maybe an effective one to go almost a cell shaded approach, sort of like an outline. Because I think stockings tend to simulate that sort of a effect. Nope, that is too dark. Let's bump it up a bit. Still might be too green. You know, I'm not hating how this is developing here. I think we might be on the path. We might be on the path. Yeah, unfortunately the camera's like overlapping with the light a little bit. Can't help that. Need to look to improving my setup. Maybe something to look forward to over the holidays. Probably could be a little bit better at least. Misfit says, well, think I'm going to get an early night. I'm worn out from today. Night, night. You have a good night as well, Misfit. Thanks for tuning in. Let's try bumping up the normal skin color here, showing through these rips. That might make it easier to sell the effect. Looks like I might need some Ink by Darkness after all. Unfortunately, I kind of borked the blend a little bit too. We'll see if I can work with that. Way too bright. We're just gonna remove that. Pyro says, man, Clan Pestilence are really annoying in Total War. That sounds like Skaven. That sounds appropriate. Try and push those bright values a bit more with some Ogren camo just added into that existing blend. I figure if you just gradually step up the colors enough, like just keep pushing the maximum bright values slowly, I'm hoping it will just come together. I am overall pleased with everything else, but it seems like I'll have to spend a bit of time to clean up this experiment. Pollux G, welcome to the stream. Hydra Dominatus, my fellow Alfari. Just slowly but surely building up the tones. And hopefully, when it's all said and done, it'll look like stockings. At least more so. At least more so. Pyro says, question at What the 40K. Do you think 40K needs a system like Fantasy where some units are core, some are rare, and some are special? And on top, fluffy, then some special... Oh, sorry. Then on top, fluffy list that changes what units are core, special, and rare. Okay, I think I know what you mean there, Pyro. It's kind of like how older editions we had 4 Sorg, and then, you know, if you played White Scars, your bikes would become troops, right? That kind of idea. I think that would certainly help rein in competitive abuse of certain units, maybe. Like, I've always liked the idea that, you know, you play Raven Guard Space Marines. Yes, you have access to the standard units that all other champs, you know, barring your special characters or whatever. But I like the idea that if you're playing Raven Guard and you're a Raven Guard guy, that maybe if you're playing your Raven Guard detachment, you can't take things like Centurion Devastators and maybe even Aggressors and teleport them in point blank range all of a sudden. But when you're playing Raven Guard, your Phobos units, your jump pack units, would have incredible jank. I like that idea better. I like a paradigm where chapters or subfactions of any type will have really strong strengths, but also pretty strong weaknesses as well. Right? I think that makes for a more dynamic kind of lay of the land. Because I abhor the competitive what competitive list building does, where you try and remove all weaknesses. Right? It just lends for less thematic interactions on the tabletop, and I just feel it leads to kind of list homogenization. Like everything starts looking the same and feeling the same, and yeah, it's lame, super lame. Pollux G says kind of like fourth edition. Perhaps I can't speak to the rules in fourth edition. I remember in seventh there was rules for formations that I think had similar restrictions, like you must take certain things and then, well, I suppose what I'm describing isn't exactly the formations from 7th. Pollux G says, also, Raven Guards should have been able to take the Corvus Black Star for like forever. Is that true? Do they have any claim to the Corvus Black Star? Or is that just a use of a word that is also commonly used in the Raven Guard? Flight of Icarus says, I honestly think GW is a bit too gun-shy about changing which units are battle line in different detachments. It certainly feels that way. We've gotten a little bit of that. Like, I think the Tyrannid Warrior Detachment made Warriors battle line, right? I think there's a... It's named after their Primarch. Pollux G, if you are correct, and the Corvus Blackstar is literally like Raven Guard tech, named after the Raven Guard's Primarch, then yeah, it does feel a bit bad. Does feel a bit bad. I'm not sure what the verdict is on that though, from a lore purity point of view. Shit. Just want to bump up the contrast on the skin that's showing through these rips. Yeah, the forward-facing side here is probably going to be pretty bright. Oh, we probably should have one on the back here as well. Yeah, kind of like that. And just draw an outline. I wonder if that's as good as it's gonna get. Pollux G says that alone makes it cooler. They could take it now because of the Agent's Ally rules, but I still think I can only transport Deathwatch units, but I'm not sure. That sounds about right, unless you have a Inquisitor lead a unit of Raven Guard guys, then he can probably bring them in. Probably, I want to say, but... It's also possible they named the plane in honor of Korax because it's a stealthy flying thing. Who knows? I'm inclined to lean more that way. Honestly, I don't know if it's something that is inherently Raven Guards. I mean, it's the product of a time when GW wanted to give every faction an airplane. And have like a spin-off game mode just for airplane battles, but I feel like that time has passed, and I get the feeling GW does not like airplanes and doesn't know how to rule airplanes because they're a hard thing to balance because they're such outliers. They ignore the rules completely, you know. Well, not completely, but they ignore so much of the normal rules units must adhere to. Might have to darken that shin a little bit. Well, guys, I don't know. I think I'm not exactly spinning my wheels here, but I wonder if this is close to as good as it's gonna get. What does chat say about this? About where we find ourselves? Does this feel like stockings? Is it reading? Is it reading to you guys? Be honest. Be honest. Don't just tell me what I want to hear. Though it would it would bring me much joy. We need to add those stitching lines that are going to run vertically on the contour of her legs along the back. But I think that's one of the final processes. I don't know if I should do that too early, if that's a good or good or bad idea. Right? 'Cause it's going to be a line that runs like this, basically. And same on this side, kind of like that. Flight of Icarus says, no, an Inquisitor can't bring other infantry into the Black Star. He can't even enter unless he's leading Death Watch veterans. Right. That makes sense, because the authority of Inquisition allows you to enter whatever your leading can enter, right? I think that's the mechanism at play here. Icarus says, I like the Corvus Black Star. It's one of the few Imperial aircraft I actually like. Yeah, it's one of the few Imperial aircraft that looks like it can fly. The Storm Raven's probably the worst for that. But when you expand the proportions to a Thunder Hawk, it becomes a bit more believable, I think. Or maybe it's just a more appealing aesthetic, and then I give it a pass on that. Pollux G says, it's kinda the only one I even see being used. Power says, I can't tell, maybe hold it longer at the camera so I can admire it. So you can admire it, sure. Yeah, so this is where we are. You can see the normal skin tone on the upper body and arm versus the legs. Does it read? Does it read? I don't know. At least the attempt was made, so it's darker, but... Pollux Jesus checking the assets, yes. Of course, how could you not? I don't know, I'm kind of like unhappy with even the capture quality. I feel like it's not doing justice to what I am looking at, which I wonder will like muddy the evaluation on chat's part. That's possible. Maybe I'll just continue trying to build up the tones, I guess. Maybe on the back of the leg we can paint in a bit more of the contrasting elements. That seems reasonable, given that that's how it would probably... the stockings would probably accentuate the anatomy here. So I can probably paint those in. Yeah, I think it's too bright down by this calf. Let me bring in more brown. Pyro says might need to do some form of highlights that read like cloth? Question mark. Icarus says, honestly, a question I've been kicking around is what would it take to make a Thunderhawk competitively viable? What points/rules changes would actually make it work? Like multiple light crossing patterns. Oh, like multiple sort of crisscrossing patterns back and forth, maybe. I'll give that a try, Pyro. I'll give that a try. Pollux G says it would be much easier to spot if she had human flesh tones, but if up close you see the difference. Okay, well, I can take some solace in that. I'll try mixing in a little bit of Ogren camo, just a little bit, for some brighter tones here, and we'll see if I can maybe create some texture, maybe? That kind of idea. It's not supposed to be a fishnet, FYI. It's supposed to be like a sheer sort of fabric. But maybe just for the sake of the miniature, we need to help the readability where we can. It's not a bad way to even just add some texture. Give it a bit of a visual, give the visual interest a bit of a boost. Yeah, have you guys checked out the secret level stuff for Warhammer over on Amazon Prime? It dropped, I think, today. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool animations of Space Marines being badass, being a transhuman, stoic warriors. Not much to criticize, honestly. It's pretty straightforward, just a cool kind of Astartes style animation. There was not a ton of dialogue to really speak of. It's more just creating atmosphere than telling a story. Pyra says, so one day I'll watch it on the high seas. Pollock says, not yet, but I will as soon as I'm leaving here. Well, I'm flattered you chose to tune into the stream instead of watching a very, what appears to be a highly anticipated bit of media. Well, we've added in some subtle brush strokes, but is that making it better at all? Pollux G says, but this is live and I get to nerd out about 40k. Fair. I will accept your rationale. Okay, I'm going to try a bit of an experiment here. Another experiment. We're going to mix a little bit of Inktense Black with... Oh my god. Gross. Oh, it's leaking! Okay, we're just going to close it. We'll deal with it later. Okay, we're going to paint that, and I guess would like to maximize the contrast, because I think that is... The more I think about it, the more I think that's the result of such a material, right? Because it's sheer, it'll become more opaque as it begins to kind of layer up in crevices and I guess it'll play with the natural shading as well. The problem with Inktense Black is that it's fairly glossy. So this may cause complications. But I suppose to keep it from entirely looking like a cell-shaded effect, it'll probably require some blending out. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I went way over time with regards to the... With regards to, oh, I'll just paint her for 30 minutes and then we'll take a break. So let's take a look at that detachment and then I'll return to painting. Probably stream a little bit. I've been streaming later than I've been planning to, more often than not. But, that is what it is. Okay, so, Grotmus Calendar. The Warp Bane. The Warp Bane Task Force. When demonic entities corrupt the worlds of the Imperium, the Grey Knight's forces strike to cleanse unhallowed ground and restore the sanctity of the Emperor's domain. Perfect! Perfect! Right on theme. We are all about being those space paladins. Okay. It looks like it's focusing on purifiers, which seems apt enough. Okay, hallowed ground detachment rule. Certain areas of the battlefield are within your army's hallowed ground as follows. Jesus Christ. Okay, it's another one of these zones, I think. Another one of these zones detachments. Your deployment zone is always hallowed ground, the area of the battlefield within 6 inches of one or more purifier squads from your army. Is within your army's hallowed ground. Okay, so purifiers always give hallowed ground. And then at the start of any phase, if you control at least half the objective markers in no man's land is in hallowed ground. And at the start of any phase, if you control at least half the objective markers within your opponent, yeah, okay. Same zone breakdowns as we've seen in many other detachment rule sets. Just like the Thousand Suns detachment, they're both using the zoning type of system. Again, these could have been universally ruled with a mechanical name. And then they could add these little addendums, right? Regardless, that's... the inclusion of purifiers here is nice. It's a nice twist on these types of rules. Each time a model in a Grey Knight's unit is... from your makes an attack, we roll a hit roll of 1. And if that unit is a purifier squad, or is within your army's hallowed ground, you can re-roll the hit roll instead. So you have an Oaths of Moment, always if you're within your hallowed ground. Wow. Very, very cool. Very cool. You could move units in the movement phase to set up Oaths on particular targets, if you have the means to control objectives in your movement phase. But if you don't, you could just use purifiers as like an easy vehicle to apply that perk to the target you want. Because areas of the battlefield within 6 inches is hallowed ground. So if an enemy unit is just if just one model of an enemy unit is within 6 inches of a purifier squad, that would make them on hallowed ground. If I'm understanding this correctly. Feel free to clarify if my understanding is incorrect, chat. Enhancements, Mandulian Reliquary, 20 points. Grey Knight's model only while the bearer's unit is not battle shocked, add 3 to the bearer's OC. 3 extra OC on a Grey Knight model, Not terrible. Look, it'll help you flip objectives and maintain your hollowed ground. So that's on theme. It's on theme and in line with the mechanical direction of the toolkit they're kind of laying out here. Radiant Champion, 15 points. Granite's infantry model only. The bearer's melee weapons have precision. Love that. And while the bearer is within your army's hollowed ground, each time a melee attack made by the bearer scores a wound, the target of that attack suffers 1 mortal wound in addition. That's awesome. But it's only for the bearer's melee weapons. But even still, if you have a character with a decent amount of attacks, that's good big money value and with precision also. Like the mortal wounds in addition is kind of rare since we have devastating applied as a universal weapon ability. And devastating is not mortal wounds, and they don't deal in addition. It's just the damage becomes unsavable. So that's a pretty awesome quality of life if you can just get that 8th/9th edition style of overlapping damage back. File of the Abyss. Grey Knight's infantry model only. Models in the bearer's unit have the stealth ability. Not terrible. You know, -1 to hit is still useful. It's just not, it's not incredibly alluring, but it's not bad. Paragon of Sanctity. Grey Knight's model only. Once per battle at the start of any phase, the bearer can select one friendly Grey Knight's unit within 18 inches and visible to it. If it does, until the end of the phase, that unit is within your army's hollowed ground. Okay, so you give this enhancement and you can basically function like normal Space Marines, effectively having Oaths of Moment. Just pick a target within 18 zone, so it's not as freely declarable. Yeah, the enhancements all seem to tie into the hollowed ground detachment rule, which I like. I like when the enhancements and mechanics key off of each other, right? You get some synergy, some overlapping function. Sanctified Kill Zone. Your shooting phase or fight phase. When a Grey Knight's unit from memory is not selected to shoot or fight this phase, and is in hollowed ground. Okay, so you gotta be in hollowed ground, and you need to. That's quite an ask. You pay a CP, and you have a condition. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1, or reroll the wound roll instead if that unit is Purifiers. Well, Purifiers will always be in hollowed ground, right? That's the... Yeah. So that's actually, for them, it's a non-issue. The restriction doesn't even exist. Or the condition. Flames of Sanctity. Movement phase. Oh, I scrolled too fast there. Okay, end of the fight phase on a Purifier squad again. And it has to be that was eligible to fight this phase. So I guess something that thought or is still engaged. Roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of your unit, adding 1 to the result if your unit includes Castellan Crow. On a 4+, oh, do some cheeky mortal wounds at the end of the phase. I like it. Super useful. Super useful. You can get shipped down some damage. You got a target with 1 wound remaining. How often does that happen, right? And it's super frustrating when something's alive with 1 wound, because it's like you're so close to removing that problem, and now it's going to have dire consequences, usually. Hollowed Beacon. Movement phase, reinforcement step of your movement phase. 1 Grey Knight's infantry unit, excluding Terminators, that was arriving using Deep Strike or Teleport Assault. Set your unit up within your army's hollowed ground and more than 6 inches away from all enemy units. Okay, so same design space as the Demon Deep Strike. The 6-inch Deep Strike. Look cool. It's nice to have. Likely able to charge, just like the demons. Except for that one time I deep struck 2 chariots 6 inches away and I failed to charge on both. That was terrible. It was terrible. I've been burned. I've been bad touched by charge rolls from Deep Strike 2 many times. And I abhor them. Okay. Fires of the Covenant. Let me zoom in here. Looking at my OBSD. Things off center. Okay. Start of your opponent's movement phase. 1 Grey Knight's infantry unit from your army. Oh, we have 3 reactive strats again. Sorry, got a bit excited there. So you choose a Grey Knight's infantry unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit was set up or ends an advance, normal move, or fall back within 6 inches of your unit, roll 1d6, adding 2 to the result if your unit is wholly within hollowed ground. On a 4+, or 2+ if you're on hollowed ground, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Out of phase mortal wounds twice so far. Once in the enemy movement phase and once at the end of the fight phase. I mean, I guess it's out of the attack sequence, but it's typically a phase where you could have mortal wounds. That's awesome. It's just for being in, it's not Purifier based. Any Grey Knight's infantry unit can do it. That is very cool. Kind of wish Salamanders could do that. It's just useful to have that threat, right? To have that threat. I guess it's better for Grey Knights because it's not just Flamer Purifiers. It's any infantry. So you could say they're doing some banishment psychic powers to justify what's going on here. Yeah, and that's kind of what the flavor text is outlining here. Aegis Eternal, 1 CP, your opponent's shooting phase just after enemy unit has selected its targets. And you choose a Grey Knight's infantry unit that was one of those targets. Until the end of the phase, models that are wholly within your hollowed ground have a 4-up invulnerable save. Handy, strong, and annoying. It's very good. Until the end of the phase... Oh, sorry. Repelling Sphere. Repelling Sphere. I like it. 1 CP in your opponent's charge phase. It's a charge subtraction. Yeah. Subtract 1 from the charge roll. Or subtract 2 if your unit is within hollow ground. I think 2 is pretty standard. Well, there's a lot of overlap with the hollowed ground mechanic, which I think is the right thing to do for detachment toolkits. Funny, like with the Thousand Suns, I like this take on the Grey Knights themes more than the previous detachment. Feels a bit more like the space paladins that want to banish their foes. I think it feels pretty good. Sliced Melon says, welcome Sliced Melon, says Purifiers are best for it. That would be for the, for one of the stratagems, I would imagine. Probably for Fires of the Covenant. Probably. Pollux Jesus Force Bubble? Yeah. Did I miss something? Or Pure Lads Battle Line? I don't believe so. They do spread out the effect of the hollowed ground, though, which is cool. I think that's a neat inclusion, kind of like how Greater Demons now do the same effect for the Demons Detachment. They spread the... What was it called? The Shadow of Chaos. Not to be confused with Shadow of the Warp. The Chaos Demons are copycats. Okay, where were we? Painting butts. That's where we were. Oh, you know, I have a message here. Let me see if this is important. If it's crucial. No, no fires. We're good. We are good to continue. Okay, so what we want to do is just do those lines, those seams, I guess, on the back of her leg. The backs of her legs, the back of her legs. That is how to speak English. Okay, so we're going probably this direction. I'm going to cut into this seam. And, oh, we have to kind of line up a little bit with the back of this. We don't have to line it up. Then we can get away with that. I think, you know, it's not a perfect line. There's a bit of a break there, but definitely the word of the day. I think from a readability point of view, I think it's serviceable. Okay, and over here, we're gonna come out and back in. Yeah, probably like this. Well, I think that counts as a one and done. Almost. You know, there's a bit of variance in the seam, but I don't think that's a huge problem. Icarus says, I feel like I would like the Grey Knights lore more if they were like the Death Watch and recruited already existing Marines who happen to be particularly pure and chaos resistant, rather than my Emperor's gene seed. Yeah, probably. Probably. I guess the idea is that Psychers are already so rare, and that Space Marines are supposed to be so rare, so, you know, if the Grey Knights are pulling Psychers from chapters, it's like, man, not many chapters are going to have Psychers. Right? If it's already like a rare pool within a rare pool. So they need to kind of force it. Force it with this weird different skew of gene seed. Well, you know, I think having the lines at the seams on the back of her legs does help sell the effect a little bit more. Maybe I just want to believe. Maybe that's just to cope. The desire to believe. I'm going to blend out the back of those particularly dark areas I filled in with a scale 75. Then you know what we're going to do? We're going to wrap up relatively soon. Famous last words, right? No, we're going to use some, not contrast medium. We're going to use Lamian medium, and I'm going to overlay it onto the areas of the stocking. And what I'm hoping that does is create a material difference in the same way that a gloss varnish would over rubber, right? To get a different materiality, and maybe that'll help distinguish the stocking legs from the bare skin a bit more, right? Could also be the case I've just been looking at this for too long and it's getting hard to evaluate, but I don't think it'll hurt to add a materiality difference with the finish. Yep, so we'll do that. So we got a Lamian medium here, we got the safety stand. And yeah, we'll do that and then we'll begin rimming these bases. A lot of poolage there, but we can keep drawing from it, so it's not a huge problem. Pollux G says, oh wait, hold on. Let me start further up. Icarus says, I read all that. Pyro says, reads as leggings now. Pyro, that makes me feel a lot better. And Pollux G says, but then they would have Yoinked, Mephiston, and Tigurius. Yeah, right, well, I think that is exactly the issue. Look at that. We need to get rid of the pooling. Can't have that. I wonder if I should get a knife blade and get rid of this, but I feel like I might break the model, and that would be very sad. A true tragedy. I feel like the model will just explode apart. Maybe I'll try to do such a fix off stream, just in case. Okay, I think... What a journey it has been. What a journey it has been. Okay. Got a fat brush for rimming these bases. And we'll just start with quiet right away. Just pulling black primer off my palette here for this. I know Mephiston is an OG Blood Angels character that he has quite a lot of fans because of that, but when I was reading, or rather listening to Devastation of Baal, I could not help, not Baal, Devastation of Baal, I could not help but cringe a little bit at how he was being depicted. It just felt like Guy Haley was just stroking him off at every turn. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a scene in Devastation of Baal where Mephiston's in a Thunderhawk or a Storm Raven or some transport, and he jumps out of the transport at an oncoming Tyranid like gargoyle fleet, manifests the wings of Sanguinius and flies out to basically nuke them all. It's crazy to me. It's just I can't help it. I can't help but hate. It's so over the top. Then you have the odd anecdotes of stopping the hearts of pilots high above in the sky. Iron Man's guilty of that too. You get a load of this guy. He's stopping the hearts of fucking people kilometers away. I feel like I shouldn't even be concerned because Mephiston's here. Pollux G says, Mephiston is written as like the most OP Space Marine character of all time in all books and short stories. Okay, good. I'm not crazy. I'm glad to hear that. Pollux G says he kills a Tyranid spaceship on his own with his sword in the air. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. You know, I'm gonna have to find a recipe for Crimson Fists. How to paint them. I don't know if you guys have any recommendations or references. I was thinking of using Prussian Blue from AK as a base because it turned out really well as a base color on that Voidwalker I did for Sultan. It has a particular kind of a sheen to it. And I mean, when you start layering over top, you lose that, but I wonder if there's a way I could preserve it. Yeah, another thing I like about the Horus Heresy miniatures for the Loyalist Space Marines is, in addition to the proportions looking rather charming and nostalgic, I really like how they scale relative to Chaos Space Marines. You get much more of a semblance of the other side of the coin. Is Primaris, like the Intercessor just being larger than the Chaos Space Marine, just really kills that for me. It kind of hurts that theme a little bit. I also think principally your villains shouldn't be smaller than your heroes. I think your antagonists need to be imposing. Call me crazy. Okay, so I think these dudes need another coat here, but I don't love the idea of picking models up with this hand. Yeah, so we'll give their bases a few more minutes to dry and do another pass, and then we'll wrap things up for today's stream. Omegon's twin, welcome to the stream. Have we reviewed the detachment yet? Yep. Thoughts? It's okay. The Grey Knights detachment is similar to the Thousand Suns detachment in that they both use that same base zoning system where you have a tag, in this case called Hollowed Ground, where areas of the battlefield become hollowed ground if you control objectives, more than half the objectives in those areas between no man's land and the opponent's deployment zone. Your deployment zone is always in hollowed ground, and purifiers always manifest hollowed ground within 6 inches of them. And then all the enhancements, not all, but most of the enhancements and stratagems play into your units or enemy units in hollowed ground. Personally, I think it scores higher on the theme for me, as opposed to the Grey Knights index detachment. Definitely feels more of a space paladin, or banishing the foe, or banishing the demons. It feels more evocative of that theme. Pollux G says, sounds fun, but I don't have any reference. I don't have any idea on how or what their others are. Omegon's twin says, I would like another Purifier character, so the enhancements would work better, but I may still try it a few times. I mean, hey, it's free. Why not give it a try, right? Games Workshop is giving out free rules. Doesn't happen often, right? I'd say give it a whirl. Well, those bases certainly look cleaner now with the rims all blacked in. Something about rimming your bases that just makes models look. Take that as a PSA to rim your bases, guys. Pollock says, detachments I meant. Right. That does make sense with that added bit of context. Yeah, the previous Grey Knight's detachment was... Was it uppy downy? Was it picking units and teleporting back up? Now you got me curious. We can check that real quick. I'm just waiting for those rims to dry anyways. Okay, the existing detachment rule is teleport shunt. Maybe I'll just put this on screen for you. Each time a Grey Knight's unit with the Deep Strike ability advances, do not make an advance roll until the end of the phase. Add 6 inches to that move characteristic, and that unit can fly. So it's like, it seems like the detachment playstyles are just picking a emblematic unit or a signature unit of the Grey Knights and leaning into them. Nothing too crazy. Omegon's twin says, at what the 40k, got a charity tournament this Saturday. Wish me luck. Gonna be bringing out Death Watch I got after this tournament last year. Well, Omegon's twin, I do wish you the best of luck. What's the... Shit, I forgot the quote from Conan the Barbarian. Oh well. I think these are ready for a second pass, so... We'll lay them back out. And then we'll wrap up relatively quickly. Seems to me 2 coats do the trick. Power says we'll all be off. Thanks for the stream. You take care, Pyro. You have a good evening. We are almost done here. It's 3 more bases to room after this one, and I'll be signing off as well. Pollock says, I like black rimmed bases, but I kind of miss Goblin Green. I kind of miss Goblin Green as well. It just looks aesthetically worse. Unless you're really going for the nostalgia look. Which I won't lie to you, I was tempted to do. I was tempted to do that on a project or two. The problem is nobody plays games on green tables anymore. That is no longer the common battlescape. Oh, Pollock's, gee, it's almost 2 a.m. for you. How about that? Yeah, he should have. He should have skedaddled a while ago. Good old Pollux. Oh no, Pollux said it's almost 2 a.m. and Pyra left. Mind the confusion. All right, so fellow hobby enjoyers, this is where we're at. I think this is the end of the Kommando Kill Team arc for these streams. And I think they, can I tilt them without them spilling all over? I think they turned out pretty cool overall. I'll take some nicer rotations and spin jobs at a later date. And who knows, maybe they might show up on a potential bat rep or something. That's always a possibility. Anyways, guys, if you made it to the end of the stream, you are the real hobby heroes. Thanks to everyone who liked, commented, subscribed, and engaged with the live chat and all the other good algorithm interactions. And with that, I'll leave you